Today we've got an easy modification that will allow you to open your tailgate while you're connected to your travel trailer. Probably not something you can currently do. This is especially convenient if you don't want to climb into the bed to access your stuff. It's also almost impossible to access anything if you have a cap on your truck. My tongue jack is part of the BAL LS 5.3 auto leveling system. If you don't have this exact system, don't click off because this will work on other BAL tongue jacks. It's also going to work on a lot of other manufacturers' tongue jacks as well. We'll talk more about that when we get to the point in the video where I can actually show you what to be looking for. Now, BAL released a video on how to do this a while back, but that video does not address a couple problems you're going to run into with the propane cylinder cover. I'm going to show you how to work everything out, so let's just get into the modification. First, you can do this modification with the tongue jack supporting the trailer. You can if you want, but you don't need to have the trailer on your truck hitch. The shaft that lowers and raises the tongue jack will not move during this modification. You can also leave any landing gear down, stabilizers or leveling jacks. You also don't have to put your landing gear down if it's already up. Either way is perfectly fine because, again, we're not changing the level of the RV. Now, if you have something other than a BAL tongue jack, it might not hurt just to confirm with the manufacturer of that tongue jack that you can remove the head while the tongue jack is bearing the weight of the trailer. I don't think there's a tongue jack on the market that will drop the trailer if the motor's removed, but if you want to be safe and you don't have a BAL tongue jack, just connect to your truck. Anytime I'm messing with electronics that are buried under housings that I can't see, I'm always disconnecting power first to avoid shorts. Unfortunately, on many travel trailers, the battery disconnect does not disconnect power to the tongue jack, and this harness under the head does not disconnect power to the touchscreen. So to be safe, let's just remove the 12-volt negative battery terminal. Let's also disconnect our shore power to eliminate the converter. Now go back to this harness under the tongue jack and disconnect it. Yes, we already disconnected power, but with this harness disconnected, you're going to be able to move this housing down farther later on in the process. This mod will be much easier with the propane cover off, but you don't need to remove your propane cylinders. It won't hurt to peek under the jack head with a flashlight, but the BAL tongue jacks will need a number 2 Robertson or square bit, and you'll need at least 6 inches of extension. I'll put a link to the one I'm using down below along with our other discount codes in case you need to pick one up. First, we need to remove the housing. You do not need to remove the touchscreen at this time. You definitely can. BAL does this in the beginning of their video, but you'll see in a minute it's kind of an unnecessary step. For now, just leave the top cover closed. There are 3 screws. The first is on the back of the jack head in this slotted area, and then there are 2 on the bottom front of the jack head. Once the screws are out, you can separate the top housing from the bottom housing by just sliding the bottom down. This is where you can disconnect your touchscreen. You can still access the wires at this point in time, and I think it's just better protected left in the housing. You'll find a harness on the back of the touchscreen circuit board. Go ahead and carefully disconnect that harness. If you have lights on your tongue jack head, you'll see 2 more wires. Disconnect these at the terminal connectors. Now on mine, BAL flip-flop the male and female terminals so they can only be reconnected back together the right way. But I can't confirm this is done on every model, so it might not just hurt to grab a quick picture of which wires are connecting to which. Next, you will see 2 half-inch bolts that connect the motor to the shaft. Go ahead and remove these bolts. Okay, if you're doing this modification while you're watching this video, put your tools down because you're not going to do what I'm going to do next. I'm going to remove the motor from the shaft strictly to show you something. You'll notice the mounting holes for the half-inch bolts we just removed on the sides of the tube are also pre-drilled on the front and back. So we can turn the head without having to drill any new holes. Those holes are going to be pre-drilled on their other systems, including the LS 7.3, the 7.1, and I also believe the SS 5.1. I've also heard Lippert has already started adding or will be adding these pre-drilled secondary holes to their tongue jacks. I can't confirm that, but it's definitely worth taking a look at your jack. Now, if you don't see any additional holes, you can drill and tap new holes. Joshua at RV Gear and Far made a great video on how to do this, and I'll link that video down below. Okay, now I'm going to put the motor back on the shaft, and this is where you can continue with the modification. Do not lift the motor off. Turn the motor and try to reposition it back on the shaft. The shaft and the spindle are slotted, so the motor will not seat correctly if you do this. Just turn the motor 90 degrees as it's connected to the shaft. Okay, here's where I'm going to save you a little time and frustration. If you remember, I mentioned earlier that there's an issue that the BAL video does not cover. We turned the tongue jack towards the passenger or camping side of the trailer. I'm going to fast forward with everything put back together, and you'll notice with the propane cylinder cover on, you can't unfortunately open the lid to access the screen, not even a little bit. So you will have to turn the motor to the driver or service side of the camper. Now, you might get lucky depending on the size of your cylinders and cover. Definitely worth checking, and this will not really matter for a standard tongue jack because the buttons are usually on the front. But if you have 30-pound cylinders and the Flame King cover like me, the motor will have to be on the driver's side. Let's reinstall the 1/2-inch bolts. This time they'll be in the front and rear of the post instead of on the sides. Reconnect your touchscreen harness and your light wires if you have them. Position the upper and lower housings together and insert the Robertson screws. Reconnect your motor harness on the post and hook back up to 12 volts and shore power. This would be a good time to power up the tongue jack and run through some manual adjustments just to make sure the stabilizers and jacks are working properly. Okay, while we're on the subject of these stabilizers, you'll notice I have 5-inch square RV snap pads on my front stabilizers, but I don't have snap pads on my rear leveling jacks or my tongue jack. RV Snap Pads makes pads for just about every size available except these 9-inch squares. So as soon as we got this trailer, I was on RV Snap Pads to get these things made, so I know that they're coming, I just don't know when. Your feet will scratch and eventually start to rust. This is the bottom of my stabilizer jack a week after getting the RV and having been lowered twice on my stone parking pad. This scratching has nothing to do with product quality or the manufacturer. You have a lot of weight pressing metal plates down into concrete or stone. The easiest way to avoid this is to just separate the two with a snap pad. They not only protect your landing gear, they will protect your driveway or your parking pad from scoring and staining. They provide more surface area, which prevents sinking on soft ground. And being rubber, they grip better on loose and uneven ground than a metal foot. So if you have a 9-inch square, hang in there, they are coming. And as always, if you use our link down below, you'll get 10% off your order. Okay, let's finish up the mod, reinstall your tank cover. Unfortunately, you will not be able to lock the lid after doing this modification without removing the tank cover, but it should still close. At first, I thought I'd be a little bummed out about this, but after we got a few camping trips under our belt, I wasn't even locking this lid anymore anyway. But definitely worth noting if you want to continue using this lock. Now, on the Flame King cover, there's a removable panel to access the propane regulator. The tongue jack lock and the lid both make contact with this panel. So to add a little space, I just ground down the middle ridge of the panel and I marked a spot where the lock would rest and just slightly notched a section on the outer ridge of the panel. Now the lid clears the panel and the lock sits nice and tight in this notch. With the lid unlocked and about 12 hours of drive time on really crappy Pennsylvania roads since we've done this modification, the lid has not opened one time. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, so let me address that. I thought I would hate having the screen towards the RV, but to be honest, I've come to like it a little better. It's still easily accessible, and if you ever have to manually adjust, the screen orientation of the jacks now match the position of the jacks. For example, the rear jacks are on the bottom of the screen, which is directly behind me. The jacks to the right of where I'm standing are on the right, same with the left. So it's actually a little easier to read and understand in this position. I think you're going to see more and more manufacturers using this BAL leveling system. You can already find it on some Brinkley's, KZ, Coachman, Forest River, and Keystone, Rockwood, and of course my personal favorite, Venture RV. Now I can open my tailgate while the truck is connected, which makes accessing things in the bed so much easier. A lot more RV modifications are coming, so if you want to get notified when those videos are released, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.